But I really like taking historically inspired clothes and making them wearable for my body and my everyday, which is not a historical life and not a historical body. So I'm going to be trying to make 2 skirts in historical styles that are adjustable. By adjustable, I mean that you can take them in or let them out a certain amount for a range of different days, you know? Sometimes you might want a little bit more slack in your waistband and some days you might not. And I want to have skirts that can do that. Good morning, everyone. So the first skirt is complete. As I said in my last clip, the closure of the skirt was a bit of a shambles, and that's why it's taken me so long to finish it, but also why the motivation just plummeted. Because the closure didn't work out, and then, as I said in the beginning, I was flip-flopping between the design for the second skirt, and I think I flip-flopped away towards from the original design, which means I was ever so slightly less excited about it because I really liked this original design. However, having thought more about it, I realised that this is a shape of which I already have many skirts, and there's not really any point adding another one like this. So instead I have decided to do an 18th century petticoat, or skirt as you'd like to call them. The only difference from this is that I will be using a machine to sew it, naturally, and I will be adding a waistband, which is not typical of 18th century petticoats. They usually are faced, if they have any at all, they're just faced with a tape or a ribbon. That's the thing that is used to tie around the sides. So I will explain a little bit more about the adjustability of that closure a little bit later on. But the first thing that I have to do is to decide on the size of my rectangles. The wonderful thing about an 18th century petticoat is that it is just rectangles. And so it'll be really easy to cut and hopefully really quick to sew, because I do need this skirt done within 48 hours because I want to take it with me on holiday. So I need it done ASAP. So the task for today is to cut out my rectangles and see how far I can get. I think the order of operations will be to do it quite similarly to the other skirt, where I will also want to do a linen facing at the bottom of the skirt. But I'm going to be cutting out 2 rectangles, one for the front, one for the back. And then I'm going to figure out how long I want them to be, because I don't want them to be floor length like traditional 18th century petticoats. I will want them to be about the same length as these other skirts that I always usually make. And then I will pleat up the top, get that sitting nicely, level up the hem, add some facing, hem it, add some tape, and that should be it. Should be done. Should be really simple. So let's get started. I need to cut out some rectangles, and that should be super easy. Okay, so you should have now 2 evenish rectangles, quite large rectangles. Mine are about 1.5 meters each. And the next step I'm going to do is I'm just going to pleat up the tops of the skirt so that I can then even out the hem. To pleat this, there's a few options. You can use your hands, you can use a pleating board. I'm going to use my trusty fork. I don't really have a plan for this. I know I want quite thin knife pleats for the back, And then for the front, I am going to do the knife pleats and then a box pleat at the front. This is a traditional way to make 18th century skirts. If you wanted to modernize it a little bit, you can also do knife pleats all across the front. That's way more modern. I'm going to do a box pleat first, and if I don't like it, I'm going to undo it and go with the knife pleats. But yeah, I'm just going to do that now and see how that fits. Sometimes pleats work out without maths. I hate maths, so I just finagled it so it works. There's a choice between using the cut edge and the grain line, the selvage here, for your waistband. I've decided to use the top, and that is because I might have to even out the hem, so I'd be cutting off the selvage anyway. But the reason you'd want to use the cut edge is because it's actually a little bit less bulky than the selvage. But I'm going to use the selvage, and then I'm going to trim down the seam allowance if I need to. So I think this is going to take me a little while to pleat up all of this fabric, but I'm going to pleat, I'm going to pin, I'm going to press, and I'm going to try it on and see how it works. Okay, so the pleating is kind of done. So I just wanted to check the front. So I've done the front with that's my own. I've done the front with like a box, the typical box pleat. So here it is unpressed. It looks like this. We can try on the back piece as if it was the front and it was all just knife pleated in one direction. So it would look like this. I actually can't decide. I think I like this a little bit more. You know what that means, it's an Instagram poll kind of time. Okay, but I really need to finish this today, so I'm gonna put this on Instagram, go for lunch, and whatever it is at the end of lunch is what it's gonna be. Libras shouldn't be allowed to sew. You know how I was desperate for help to make a decision regarding these pleats. The Instagram poll after 2 hours was 50-50 split. And I posted again asking people to vote more because I'm still indecisive. But I've done as much as I can to prep everything else that I need to do. So I just need to make a decision, and I just rechecked it, and I think the knife pleats are winning 51-49. And I think, looking at the photos I took of the two options, I think I prefer the knife pleats. They do look a little bit more modern, so a little bit more versatile, and I do think they're more flattering. So we're going to go with the knife pleats. So I'm just going to quickly repleat the front, iron it, baste it, sew it by machine, and then we can start working on the hem, because I've already leveled the hem of the back. Thankfully it was actually pretty level, because none of this is cut on the bias. It's much easier than the previous skirt. So I'll just level the hem, and then I'm going to add one strip of heavier weight linen to the hem just to give it a little bit more zhuzh. And I'm going to sew that into place by machine, and then just some hand finishing, and it should be waistband. Let's go. Want to know some more about this hem? Well, you're gonna. So I sewed on the strip of linen reinforcement to the wrong side of the hem with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And the purpose of that is that I cut this so that it was 5.5 inches longer than I needed it to be, because I thought a faced, not like a facing hem, but a folded hem would add a really nice weight to the skirt, because that's what you want for your hem, to really add some nice weight. So after sewing that bit of linen, I went to the iron and I just folded it up by the width of the linen. And then I've got up here the seam. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to trim back the heavier weight linen, and then I can fold the raw edge up to the stitching line. Focus please. And just sew that down by hand. But before I do that, I'm actually going to do up the side seams by machine. And I might put on the waistband. Basically I have to put my machine in for a service soon. And I want to do it so that I've done all the machine sewing and I'll leave all the hand finishing for the end so that I can do it while the machine is gone. Work smarter, not harder. So yeah, let's finish off these machine sewing bits and then just leave all the hand finishing. Which seems like a bad plan, but that's my favourite bit, so it's gonna work out. Okay, so I've yet again forgotten about the pockets. So I thought I'd talk you through. I have prepped them, I cut them. This is just my typical pocket pattern that I've finished with a French seam, just so it's self-contained. But these kinds of skirts are not made to have pockets in them, because in the 18th century you would have a tie-on pocket. This is like a little pocket that would be on a piece of tape or ribbon that you could tie around your waist, and then it would sit on the side where this gap in the skirt is, and then you could reach in and access your pocket. I love the idea of a tie-on pocket. I've read so much about them in terms of research, but I just haven't had the time. I really want to make like a heavily embroidered one, like a nice hand sewing project. I haven't had the time to do that, and I don't think that realistically adding something else that I have to have on with this skirt for every day would make me wear it more. So I've decided to put in pockets, normal pockets, and I've done this once before on an 18th century petticoat without a waistband, and it kind of works. You have to be careful because the pocket needs to be anchored somewhere, because obviously it can't sit neatly and be anchored by both sides of the side seam because it doesn't close, there's a gap. So what I've decided to do is anchor it to the waistband, and this does mean that the pocket sits quite high, but if you put it in the waistband then it distributes the pull a bit better and it will support it better than just on the side slit. So what I've done here is I've left the top of the pocket raw, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to baste it into the waistband seam allowance at the top, so that it's anchored like that, and I'm going to finish these raw edges of the pocket opening and the raw edges of the slit all in one go, so that it sits just inside the edge of the slit at the front. So it's not the most secure pocket, but it's better than none. So this is what we're going to do, and then I'll try it on and see if I'm happy enough with it. If I am, then I can finish off the waistband by just folding it. I've also added, I forgot to mention, but I added some interfacing just because I wanted a bit of a more solid waistband on this one. So I just need to fold it in and then finish it off by hand. There's just a bunch of hand sewing left to do. Okay, so welcome to the 18th century. So this is the second skirt, and I just wanted to show you how it closes because it's super easy. So in case you're new to the 18th century, the petticoats are usually, they do have a side seam, but there is a gap between the bottom of the side seam and the top. And then they close by tying the back first. So this is just a normal tape that ties, and then you tie the front over the back. And now this is a little bit more discreet in actual 18th century clothing, because you'd often wear like a longer bodice or like a little jacket and things that would cover these ties, but I still don't think they're noticeable enough to like damage the skirt in any way. So You just have to kind of like make sure that the ties are hidden, or not if you want them to be a feature. So then I usually just like tuck the ties into the skirt, and then it looks like this. So I was a little bit disappointed when I first tried it on, but I think it's because this type of skirt actually needs to be, I think I need to be careful with the type of top that I add to it. But I think something like this could work. It's quite informal. But yeah, it's just a pleated skirt. It's just pleated rectangles, but I think it really works. And as I mentioned, I did add pockets, which you can see here. I've got a pocket on either side, and they're anchored to the waistband. And yeah, that's it. I think it's really cute, and I think it will also work with things like a little vest. I think you need something structured and dramatic at the top, because when I first tried it on, I tried it on with like a plain long sleeved shirt, and it really didn't work. So I think although it's more of a, I've tried to make it a little bit more modern than an actual 18th century petticoat, I think the styling of it will still need to be very history bounding, but I think it will work. So like something like this I think looks really cute. Like this. I think I need to be like at the very back of the room for you to see me fully, but yeah. I think it's super cute. And it's super comfortable and super adjustable, because if you want to let it out, you just undo the ties and let it out a little bit. And what I did was I made sure to make this overlap here on the side quite generous, so that if I need to let it out, I've got like a couple of inches until it doesn't overlap anymore. So I think that's just the secret, is to actually make the skirt bigger than you would normally, to like give you a few inches to work with. But otherwise, I'm really happy, because when I first finished it and I tried it on, I was so disappointed. I was really, really sad, because as I showed you in the beginning, I had this other design for this skirt. But I think it's worked out in the end, and I think I will get loads of use out of it, just because it is so easy to put on, so comfortable. It's got a lot of swoosh, which you know is essential to me, and it's made of linen, so it'll be really nice for the summer, and it's got pockets. Honestly, couldn't ask for more. But yeah, that is it. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey with me. I will be putting the pattern up for the other skirt, because that one's completely self-drafted. I can do this one too, but it's just rectangles, so I'm not sure it really warrants a pattern. But I'll be putting the pattern up for the other skirt up on my Patreon. If you're interested, do check it out. I put patterns on there sometimes. Only the self-drafted ones, obviously. And yeah, that is it. Thank you so much, and I will see you all in the next video.